it is pretty scary when you're faced with something like this and you are on your own. You're in the middle of nowhere, there is nobody you can call. Generally humanity is nice, but when you meet bad ones, it can be very worrying when it's just the two of you alone on a boat.
In the last 4 years since leaving England, we have crossed 2 oceans and sailed over halfway around the world.
Our circumnavigation of the world is still on pause in Indonesia, on the edge of the Indian Ocean. After 4 months in lockdown and 4 months spent exploring locally in the Indonesian province of Nias, we were finally setting out to explore the Mentawai Islands off the west coast of Sumatra.
However, the experiences we'll share with you in this episode provide a stark contrast to the beautiful white sand beaches of the last few videos.
These are some of the more stressful situations that we have to deal with in the pursuit of our cruising life. So some people do ask, do we worry about piracy and being boarded? Now, not normally. Normally we've been in areas and we've been incredibly lucky, and maybe lucky, I'm thinking now, and not had any problems with that, but we just come into what seemed a friendly port, friendly people, fishermen waving at us as normal, and as it got dark a fishing boat is anchored pretty close to us, which was a little bit worrying, but okay, they sat down having dinner, and then we were down below and Amy just heard a faint bump or knock on the hull, said, "What was that?" Think anything of it. Then we heard it again, and I came up through the hatch, and there was a guy just climbing on the back of the boat here in a long dugout canoe with 3 other guys in the dark. I mean, I shouted at them because just with the shock of seeing somebody climbing on a boat, and he got back off. Luckily he wasn't fully on the boat yet. And then we've got 2 fuel cans on the back there, which maybe they'd seen and were trying to steal. But they certainly hadn't come up, and then they were asking for oil. Have you got oil? Have you got oil? Fuel oil. And we said no, so they backed off a bit. We turned round and then they started paddling back towards us. They drifted away and then they started paddling back towards the boat. And it wasn't, and they still kept coming, it wasn't until I went and picked up the boat hook off the deck and acted a little bit more threatening that they backed off. And so now we don't feel safe. And that's actually rare for us, so we're not sure what to do, whether it's safe to stay here or not, because there's a whole bunch of people on the fishing boat next to us. There's a boat that is now motoring around in the dark, no lights, and it's a pitch black night, so we're not going to sleep here. So you are pretty vulnerable. Most of the places we've been lucky. The people are really nice, but yeah, it is pretty scary when you're faced with something like this and you are on your own. You're in the middle of nowhere, there is nobody you can call. Generally humanity is nice, but when you meet bad ones, it can be very worrying when it's just the two of you alone on a boat.
We decided that we would feel safer at sea, and so we lifted the anchor and made our way out of the anchorage in pitch darkness. Actually totally normal for boats to come alongside us in Indonesia. In a lot of places it actually happens every day, especially in like remote places like this. Fishing boats or just small local boats will come alongside and they'll ask for fuel or for food occasionally, or try and sell us something like fish or fruit. But that's the first time that we've ever felt threatened. That was totally different to what we've had for the last several months of sailing in Indonesia. I actually feel more angry with the situation than I do scared. It's like somebody's come into your home and tried to sneak into your home at night, because Florence is our safe place and she is our home. And there's also nobody around here to call when something like that happens. So feel really vulnerable, but that actually just makes us feel really defensive and angry. So I guess it's lucky for us that the guys weren't armed and they weren't more insistent, but it's probably lucky for them that we left so that they couldn't come back and try again.
Even before having the stress of being boarded in the night, we were already pretty stressed with a problem that was going to require us to visit the main port of Sumatra. The port was 90 miles away, meaning we would have to sail overnight to get there. So since we were setting out in the night anyway, we decided to kill two birds with one stone and set our course for the port city of Padang on mainland Sumatra.
I'm feeling much more positive about the world this morning. Despite sailing through the night and not really getting any sleep at all, we actually had a really nice night. The wind allowed us to sail. It's been pretty light, but it's also been calm, which has been really nice. And although it was raining for most of the night, eventually the stars came out, and I had a beautiful sunrise this morning. I'm glad that we left when we did, because we wouldn't have got any sleep and we'd have been pretty miserable, just kind of constantly checking whether or not those guys were going to come back. So yeah, I'm really glad that we made the decision to leave in the dark and leave when we did. We've got a beautiful day today. The sun's come out, and although the wind has dropped off, so now we're having to motor sail to make sure we get to Padang in time, it's been calm enough this morning that I've been able to have a bit of a snooze. Matt's just having one now, so hopefully he'll feel better as well after that. And it's been calm enough for us to both have a bucket shower on deck. I've made a smoothie. Got some bread rising. Life's pretty good on board this morning. Although I better sort that out. As the sun came up this morning, I could see the volcanic peaks of Sumatra in the distance. Stunningly beautiful and so different to all of the flat, palm-covered, beachy islands that we've been seeing recently. So yeah, it's really nice to see something different. We were never actually intending to come to Padang, partly because it's a COVID hotspot at the moment. And to be honest, I'm feeling a bit too positive this morning. I don't want to spoil my mood by explaining the reason why we have to come here, because we've got a problem to fix. So I'll tell you all about that when we get there. How are you feeling this morning?
I'm good, thanks. No wind, which is a bit annoying, but it's a really mountainous, completely different view to what we've had for the last 8 months. That's fine. We're hoping to avoid most of the industry, shipping and bureaucracy of Padang's main harbour by heading to Teluk Bungas, just 5 miles south of the city. Here we hope to find both an easier and a safer place to leave Florence.
So we've managed to find what we think is a safe place to leave Florence, and we're actually the only yacht here, but I guess that leaves the question as to why we're here.
One of the most difficult things for us staying in Indonesia this long due to COVID is how long we're allowed to stay in the country and our visas. Now, up until now, we've had to renew our visas once a month by sending them off with a local contact. It costs us $750,000 per month, but we don't actually have to visit the immigration office.
We've recently come up to the end of the number of times that our current visa can be extended, and we still can't move on because it's currently cyclone season in the Indian Ocean and all of the surrounding countries around us are still closed due to COVID. We were told that our only real option from here was to buy a new expensive e-visa at 6 million Indonesian rupiah per person for the first 2 months. But with all the countries around us still shut, we actually felt that that was our only option if we didn't want to leave Florence and abandon her in Indonesia.
The e-visa, although expensive, was supposed to make life easier for us because we were supposed to be able to do everything online without visiting the office. But it wasn't until we'd paid for the very expensive e-visa that we were then told that we actually did have to visit the immigration office in order to get it activated and started.
Yep, and we were told that we'd have to get to the immigration office really quickly before the end of our current visas in less than a week's time. So we found out about all of that just before we arrived in Tabikat, and those guys came and tried to board the boat. So that's why we're currently in Padang, and we are hoping that the immigration office is going to be open tomorrow and be able to help us resolve this situation.
First, we need to find somewhere safe we can leave the dinghy, then find some transport, find the immigration office, and finally get our visas activated.
Well, that's the first challenge completed. I think that must be the safest place that we have ever left the dinghy. She's been looked after by about 10 friendly police officers who then escorted us out of their gated compound. So at least that's one positive for today.
We won't be able to get back in.
We will not worry about the dinghy. Whether or not we'll be able to get back to the dinghy is questionable, but that's the Indonesia that I'm going to remember, is that kind of friendliness. Now we just need to find somewhere that we can hire a motorbike, which is seeming a bit more challenging.
We're going to ask over there.
Yeah. For YouTube.
The way you find a bike in the less touristy parts of Indonesia is you just ask around until you find someone who is willing to lend you theirs for the day. The rate usually varies from the local rate of 50,000 per day to the tourist rate of 100,000 per day.
Now to find the immigration office. We found the immigration office, but it seems that everything is shut, and unfortunately our situation isn't a very easy one to explain. So although Google Translate normally helps us out, here it's a little bit more complicated. The security guard's just tried phoning somebody for us, or we believe that he has, so fingers crossed that will mean that somebody's coming to help us with our visas. So it seems that that immigration office is attached to the port and everything is closed at the moment, but there is a bigger immigration office further north, about 5k out of the city or in the city. I'm not really sure.
It's a half-hour drive.
A half-hour drive from here, so we're going to see if they can help us. Well, this looks a bit more promising. What a mess. So we arrived here first thing this morning and we're not allowed to go into the immigration office. We were told that the office was shut until, well, for another 2 weeks. At which point our visa would have run out and we'd be in real problems. So we spoke to a guy on the door, a movement for us for this afternoon. So we came back at 1 o'clock as directed and we're still no further.
It's been a massive mission to get here, and we've now been told by one guy here that we didn't need to come at all because the visa was already started from the date it was issued, which is not what we were told by the agent that we paid the huge amount of money to arrange the visa. So now we don't know where we stand, and we're also told by the people here that to extend it we have to come into an immigration office, whereas we've been told by the agent that we don't have to visit an immigration office in order to extend it. So we've been told two diametrically opposed things. We're very, very stressed, and we've no idea how we even resolve this situation.
The absolute worst thing that you can do culturally in Indonesia is to lose your cool and lose your temper sometimes. Oh man, it's really posh. But we know it wouldn't get us anywhere, so just got to smile, say thank you, and yeah, deal with it.
So you can just smile and say thank you when we end up having overstayed our visas when we try to check out and they go, oh, you need to pay $1 million a day because you've overstayed your visas. You know, normally when we go into places like, you know, going through the Panama Canal and things, we try to do things ourselves to save money rather than hire an agent. Whereas this time we just went and hired the agent, the guy that's used to dealing with all the yachts, and paid money, just like we just need to get this right and we can't stuff it up. It's gone wrong even though we tried to do the proper expensive route.
Turns out the office is actually shut because two people have recently got COVID. So what do you want to do?
I want to go back to the boat before it starts pissing it down with rain, I think, because that will make the day complete. Well, we're back on board now, but we still don't really know where we stand with our visas. It seems that the process for the new e-visa isn't fully sorted yet, and we've somehow fallen between the cracks. The immigration officials were all really friendly and trying to be helpful, but it's just, I think the process is not clear at the moment. So we don't really know where we stand, and the immigration office is now shut for 2 weeks, so we can't do anything about it. So we decided we're just going to have to try and put it out of our minds until it comes to a month's time when we actually need to do an extension. We're really happy, really grateful to be able to stay in Indonesia throughout this pandemic. And we want to do everything we can to be here legally. It's just really difficult to do that when the rules keep changing or we just don't know what the rules are. Next time, we sail away from the city and find a tranquil paradise in which to put this stressful period behind us.